Hey, good afternoon. Happy Friday, everybody. I cannot believe it is the end of January already. I am like, where the heck did the month go? Time's just flying by. So we've got a really interesting and special guest here with us, Jimmy. We'll get into that in a second. I'm Tim Golden, founder of Compliance Scorecard. Obviously here with our good friends, Tim Schnurr and Jesse Miller. Jesse, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's like 40 degrees here in Minnesota. I haven't even hooked the plow up to the truck once this year. It's still sitting in the front yard, and so life is good.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And what about you, Mr. Tim? How's it going over there, my friend?
Doing awesome. Excited for today. Tim Schnurr, head of looking for new opportunities in the channel. But like I said, excited to talk about this mysterious AI, what it's all about. And I'm really psyched to have Jimmy on to talk about his experience and kind of like what he's got cooking next.
Jesse, where's your best Terminator voice?
How about you get AI and put it on everything?
Love it, love it, love it.
Hey,
Jimmy, welcome to Jimmy, welcome to the show. We're glad you're here. You have some very exciting stuff coming up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about what's going on? Like, we've been following you a lot over at CyberQP. Look, I think I got it right this time. And we're excited for this new thing in 34 days?
Yeah, it's thank you. Yeah, so 34 days. Timer's coming down quick, but we're moving quick as well. Yeah, there we go. Our first product launch happening in just over a month. So I'm CEO, co-founder of Hatzell AI. We are an AI platform for MSPs. Basically, we find AI use cases for small businesses, and then we build products to solve those use cases and package them up for MSPs to sell and manage and co-deliver with us. So, I've been mostly in the cyberspace for the past 10 years, working with MSPs and doing the same thing, like finding new tech that small businesses haven't really adopted yet, past like maybe 1% of them, packaging it up, making it easy, working with MSPs. And, I saw AI happen and I was like, I can't, this stuff's interesting. I can't not work on this, and decided to start this company. And it's been a whirlwind path. I think I've aged 5 years in the past 20 days since I launched, but
welcome to founder life, my friend.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. We're really excited. So, when this whole thing of explosion of AI, and when I have a conversation with like my in-laws or my kids or even other professionals, IT professionals, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's that chat GPT thing, right? Like that's that, like I can talk to it and it will talk back." And I think like maybe level setting here a little bit, like AI, artificial intelligence, Terminator, Jesse, Q Jesse, right? So maybe level set us a little bit.
Oh, like AI is a big area, and it's actually insane because it's just blowing up right now. I think ChatGPT and generative AI and large language models, like this was the area of AI that all of a sudden has gained a lot of popularity. But as a byproduct of it gaining popularity, all areas of AI blew up because everyone wanted a piece of it. People were more interested in it. People saw the use cases. So it was this catalyst thing that not only it caused an explosion in large language models and Gen AI. You look at Google, you look at Facebook, everyone's coming out with something. Amazon and Anthropic and all this stuff. We're just progressing like doing 10 years worth of research, what was happening, you know, a year ago in like 3 months. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different areas. There's computer vision. Yeah, LLM equals large language model. It's funny, we're still not, like, the terms are still getting out there. But yeah, it's basically it's artificial intelligence. That's what it is, you know.
So
Doing some form of mimicking the human brain.
So let's because I don't feel like this is new. It's new because it's the hot thing. You know, I keep remembering watching, you know, TV commercials back when I actually watched live TV and seeing IBM Watson, right?
Yeah.
And there's things even prior to IBM Watson that were like similar or conceptually similar to AI as we're hearing about today, right? And so, you know, we're going to kind of get into a bunch of these other pieces, but I feel like it's been around for a little while.
Yeah,
but...
right. Tim, Big Blue and Kasparov. Remember the chess match, right? So I mean, that was a long time ago. I don't know. It was 20 years ago. It was at least 10 years ago. Yeah.
It's interesting because you think about how long have we had, for those of us that have Android phones, how long have we had image recognition? And Google Lens has been around for four or 5 years, I think, at this point, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, there's been tons of use cases in cybersecurity. I mean, we're talking 5-6 years ago when the carbon blacks, I think it was even Sentinel-1, Cylance, like all these next gen AV, where it went from signature based, right, where we're all, remember the antivirus would detect signatures, we'd be looking for MD5 hashes of files, looking against a database, seeing if it matched something malicious, then people started obscuring those, and then we're like, oh, well, let's switch to behavioral based. And AI endpoint protection was like huge for everyone. I mean, now it's just the standard. Everything uses AI endpoint protection. And then same thing with email protection, you know, where it's looking for keywords and that kind of thing, to using AI models to detect phishing attempts and things like that. But then computer vision started blowing up too, because people started doing things where you hide like text and hidden characters, or embed images and hide it underneath, things like that, where email providers started using computer vision to actually look at an email as a human would and then read it from that point of view, versus injecting the characters in, where, you know, somebody may use a different, you know, a Gaelic letter, right, or something like that, that looks like a English letter to confuse the old systems.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too that, and I think and it's kind of funny, Tim, well, both Tims, we're kind of breaking our rule here as we don't talk vendors, right? But we had to have Jimmy on.
We're not talking vendors.
I was supposed to do this in the very beginning. I'm going to cut you off, Jesse, because I forgot to do it. And that is, we don't generally talk about vendor products. We don't generally plug ourselves, definitely, and we try not to. And so I just wanted to make sure that I put that little pin in that, because we're talking about what Jimmy's doing. We're talking about, you know, how MSPs can leverage this with Jimmy and alongside Jimmy. And so I wanted to like bring that back. So, okay, Jesse.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. But I think it's important because this is kind of a first of its kind product. So I think that's why we wanted to talk to Jimmy today. But it's interesting because in preparation for this episode, I was thinking about, you know, when I first founded Power PSA about 1.5 years ago, I was all on this train that MSPs need to think about hyper automation, RPA, building these types of automation and data solutions for their clients. And literally the messaging fell on deaf ears, right? And here we are 1.5 years later, and that's exactly what Jimmy is solving for. Obviously, it's more than RPA or hyper automation even, but it is, I think, Jimmy, you mentioned this, it's a data problem that needs to be solved, and that's what AI is for. So can you elaborate that a little bit for us?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the health of a large language model or any form of artificial intelligence is how good the data is, and how ready it is to you know, be ingested and be used, whether that's for tuning a model, training a new model, or in a reference context using something like semantic search, or or going through like contextual search or vector storage, it's all data, making sure it's properly formatted. In addition to that, there's a lot on data access and cybersecurity related to that. So something as simple as, okay, you turn AI on your organization. How are you sure that if a marketing intern types in how much should I budget for this project, it doesn't spit, well, based on the current salaries of everyone in the company, the CMO gets paid this, this VP gets paid this. This is how much we think this project will actually cost. Yeah. So that's a data problem too. And I'm sure every small business's SharePoint and SMB file servers are properly delegated rights, and nobody has access to anything that they don't need, right? Yeah. So it's a mess for small businesses. There's a different set of problems for big businesses. For big companies, right? They want to use data, but they're all using line of business software. They're using data that is messy. There's mergers and acquisitions, so you have things in one format and move to another. So AI, the technology is progressing faster than we can clean up the data to get effective and healthy systems. So for small businesses, it's a data problem. MSPs can help solve that. It's a lot of it is access. Making sure AI doesn't have access to information it's not supposed to. And if it does, who has access to that AI? And then on the larger scale, the enterprise, or as we get more into tuning and training models and things like that, it's getting data in a consistent, readable format where you can get very good results.
Yeah.
So model-wise, I guess we'll just jump right into it. Like Hat's AI, and like I said, we don't usually want to pitch vendors too much, but what's happening like in the MSP space? Because traditionally, like data, as you said, you needed a big pile of clean data, typically in a data lake, right? Where you'd run different models or different algorithms and then tune them and hopefully get the result or insights that you wanted. Hats.ai, like, is it working in that traditional fashion where you're pulling all the data in like the SMBs, receptacles, whether it be servers, cloud, whatever it is, and specifically, I guess, going to find or like create that insight, right? Or we might call it AI, like whatever it is. Go into that a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I think like my approach to it is sort of a crawl, walk, run, I think. So I think in the long term, MSPs will have their own tuned LLMs. They'll have their own data sets. They'll take, these foundational models, take like a GPT-4, take a Llama 2, train it on their data, and then they'll have, Tim's Llama compliance scorecard, right? Like that tuned version, right?
Boxer compliant. Have you seen and looked behind me? They're not going to be Llama. They're going to be Boxer.
There you go. Yeah. So Boxer. Yeah. But it's going to be like there'll be some early adopters, but it's going to be a while taking people on that journey to get there. And it's interesting because the early adopters of AI are going, right to like the most complex use cases, which we aren't really ready for, or most small businesses aren't really ready for, where you can actually have huge impact in an organization using just foundational models to affect business processes. So in our first release coming up in 34 days, we're focused mostly on that and introducing companies to AI for the first time. But in the longer scope of things, as we progress through the year, that's where, allowing companies to have their own control of their own data, tuning of their own models, and sort of this, that like the way we're all thinking of it and where our head immediately goes is pulling in all the data and being able to reference anything and make smart decisions. But I think for most businesses to build an AI practice in an MSP, you can't go right to that. That's where the Accentures are going to go.
In terms of like we talked about Big Blue, right? So like they were trained specifically on chess, right? Like play chess and like beat a chess master. So like, is there a specific task, or is your like, are you thinking more like general, like, which I know harder to do general AI, but what are those top three like things that the aha moment? This is great. Like we've brought AI on and it's creating that value like right away. Or is that not like?
Yeah, it's going to be different for every organization, and that's one of the main appeals of why I chose and love partnering with MSPs, because MSPs can get to the core of what actually makes change in small businesses. But I think like the next 6 months are going to be mostly like upload file here and spit out response here, which normally takes an organization 3 hours to complete. So it's mostly in the beginning going to be prompt engineering and helping people figure out use cases. Like somebody asked for examples of use cases, comparing documents, summarizing things, checking grammar. Here's what I want to say in the email. Can you write it in a formal context? Can you create an OKR review for my employees? Can you document why some examples of why I chose this business process versus the other one before my I summarizing all the work you did for a CEO, pasting in meeting chat transcripts and spitting out notes. Like these are all examples that are intuitive to a lot of people who have been using stuff, but like the average employee in a small business, they don't even know it's possible. And maybe their kids showed it to them one time, or they saw them cheating on their homework, or they watched it on TikTok. But we're at like there's a bias thinking that we're further than we are for these things.
Awesome. Yeah. So okay. I always do this. Bring us back, right? Bring us back to the one man, one human MSP, right? So I heard the word data at least 400 or 500 times in the last 16 minutes. And so as an MSP, discussing this with my customer and all the privacy issues, all the we've been like preached to as a community. Everything we do is about the data, protect the data, like find it on the device, like, oh my God. And now Jimmy's like, upload your thing over here and we're going to spit out stuff. Wait a minute. Wait. Give me your spreadsheet of all the salaries and we're going to calculate. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that whole data privacy part, right? Because it's scary. I mean, we've been preached to as cybersecurity professionals. It's all about the data. And now you want me to do this thing with this sensitive stuff?
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, you're right. I think people are going to use this software no matter what. I remember sometime last year, early in the year last year, SaaSleo did like a thing where like it was like 8% of all users had logged on ChatGPT in like the last 30 days or something like that. And this was like 6 months or a year ago, right? So people are using it. And right now, businesses have no control over that. Maybe there's some web filtering or things to block it, but data is being posted, like put into large language models left and right. So like being like, we're not going to use this stuff is a bad policy. You need to go hard with education on what can be put in, what can't be put in, figure out policies on what can be put in, what can't be put in. There's going to be a whole suite of security products that haven't been created yet or are being built yet for data loss protection or preventing people from pasting in certain business information. Think like local LLMs run in a browser, filtering things like that. That stuff is gonna be happening. Yeah, there's Tim, AI acceptable use policy. I'm sure you've been harping on that.
We just put out a couple blog posts about it, and I've had an AI template you could download for a long time. I'm not plugging, but it does boil back to, like you're saying, what data, where is it, who has access, and is it the right people?
Yeah,
and also like people are sensitive on where it's going to go to. So we like with our platform, we're building everything LLM agnostic. So it goes to, it stays on our servers and we can keep them on our servers with models that we run in our own cloud. And eventually, long term, we're thinking the ability for MSPs to run LLMs in their own cloud or even on local machines. Like we're not there yet, but I think that's where things are going to go.
I started playing with the Azure one that's available, and let me tell you, like, I feel like I'm pretty technical in nature. Like I've been in Azure and dealing with and I was lost. Like I sat there, sat down all weekend, and I was like, I finally got it to a working like prototype, but I'm like, I think I'm a little smart. Like, not that I'm like brilliant. I can figure the crap out. And it took me a whole weekend just to so this is where like people like Jimmy and Hats AI can really help the MSPs. You spinning the cycles to learn something fun. I get that because I did it versus, having, someone that's an expert, like building this stuff out, right? Like hire the plumber to do your plumbing.
Yeah, I like this question that Tim H put in and said, with so much overlap in MSP offerings, what's the advice for MSPs trying to differentiate beyond buzzwords? Because I think this is, Jimmy, the way I see it, and you can tell me different, but what Hats is doing is what MSPs have been doing for SMBs for decades, is making that enterprise level tech, packaging it and making it accessible to small business, right? So you said, oh, maybe I've seen this once, my kids showed it to me, but I'm not thinking about it. How can MSPs practically start to differentiate and build offerings around this? And what's the go-to-market strategy here?
So I have been working in, move to cloud and heavily in cybersecurity, helping MSPs package and sell cybersecurity. Like that's been my whole career mostly on figuring that out. And AI is completely different. Like my cybersecurity brain goes right to discovery questions, having conversations about risk,
right.
That type of thing, almost like insurance, right? Like where it's a bit intangible and you need to let someone play it out in their head.
Right.
And it's all about asking the right questions. Same with movement to cloud, because you're like, hey, listen, you're going to move off of this server, this Exchange server, remove the Office 365. Now you got to log in a website, and it's way more secure. It's way better. It's blah, 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 blah. And you're going to have to pay per month now instead of like that one-time fee. And also, by the way, I'm switching my billing model to a monthly recurring thing and not like pay by hour like you used to. Like CFOs kind of wanted to ignore that, and it took like years to get it. And security, the same thing. Like I know you've never been hacked before, but you don't really know that you haven't been hacked before, and you could be hacked. Look at these news articles, right? Like they're just like, let that go away. AI, it's, hey, look, watch this. Show me that report that you're making the other day. Okay, right. Boop, 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 boop. Watch it on the screen, and then it's like typing out the report in front of them. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like how many? Think about that feeling you had. Did you have that feeling when you set up like security monitoring for the first time and the logs were being ingested? No, like it's different.
Right.
So I can think of a couple of very specific use cases, right? And so I see this question on the MSP forums a lot. Doesn't matter the platform, but I see this question a lot. And that is, how do I build up a comp structure for my salesperson? What do I like? Do I like OTE? What's this? And so me as the vendor, like I'm doing the same thing. Like I don't want to write the math to try to figure that out. So I pull up Math GPT or whatever equivalent, and I plug in some variables that I'm thinking about, and then I like ask it, right? So similar kind of conceptual for an MSP, like the dozens of times a week I see everywhere on how do I build out a comp plan? Well, you know what? You can do that in seconds in Bard or ChatGPT or Notion or whatever, and it'll do all the math for you. And then you can even say, give me the Excel formulas starting with cell B7, and it'll build the whole thing. And you can just copy, paste, dump, and move on. It's been efficient.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too that Jimmy made is, really like tied to answer Tim H's question and put a point on it, right? How do you differentiate? You show them business outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think it's pretty wide too, right? because it's everything from automation,
Mm-hmm.
which is traditional RPA, right? And then, it's gotten grouped into AI regardless, but all the cool stuff like data analytics and as you said, like conversational AI, chatbot, even, right? Like chatbot to some degree is being run same kind of like in the background with the same data. So, it's as you said, like being very consistent on those use cases. Jesse, I think you nailed it. So
yeah. So hopefully that
we're at creating a marketplace too for use cases where MSPs can share them. I think like that's going to be a big topic of events, peer groups. Like there's going to be sessions, top 10 use cases for blah 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 blah. Like
right.
that's where things are going. It also follows the general trend of MSP where it's less. Things break in your IT and I fix them, and more business advisory services. I do business transformation using technology. AI is just going to accelerate that, another 5 years in 1 year situation.
Where do you see, and just, again, asking for the MSPs here, but where do you see good target markets for this, and what types? Is this something that can help MSPs move upstream to those more lucrative customers, or is it something they should focus on SMB? How are you seeing that? Because I'm sure you guys have done research around this, right?
Yeah, I mean, the use cases are there everywhere. I think to get started, if you're using AI for the first time, less business critical, less regulated use cases is the place to start.
Okay.
So help someone in marketing, help someone with internal reports, help someone with note taking. Things where if it's wrong, it's not going to have someone sent to jail for fraud, right? and like as you learn to use it, then like don't go straight to like lawyers and like writing their contracts. That's a terrible idea.
Right.
We'll get there.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep coming back to use cases, right? Jesse, what is it? The one thing that you always talk about?
Oh yeah, so ICP, right, and targeting. I am not a marketing person. I didn't get a degree in that, but as a founder, right, you have to be involved in that. And I will say that with the advent of AI, that has helped, I think, upskill my learning a lot quicker in that, because I can ask targeted questions rather than Googling for 10 minutes. Like, what is total addressable market? I don't know what that is, so, and how do I calculate it? How do I think about that? Just for example, right? So I think, like you said, Jimmy, that's something that there's the consequences if it's wrong are just like, oh, we're not getting people to respond to our marketing, so we got to change something. Not we're going to jail, right? So,
yeah, and like it's gonna make mistakes. It's not 100% perfect, and it'll hallucinate a little bit. But so is a human, But you gotta like get in the habit of checking these things. And like if you post on Facebook something that is a little off, it's not the end of the world. You just take it down. I mean, I do that all the time.
Yeah, great example. Like what I've gotten in the habit of doing is asking, "Are you sure? Did you check the source?" If you do that with AI, for example, the other day I was looking at tractors on Craigslist, of course, as I like to do, and I'm like, I wonder what the lift capacity on this 3-point hitch on this tractor is. So I go fire that into Chat GPT, and it comes back with something I know is not right. I'm like, "Are you sure? Did you check the manual? Oh, actually, that's right. Here's the lift capacity, and here's the link to it." I'm like, okay, you just got to get in the habit of, and I think, like to your point, Jimmy, is those are ways that MSPs can start adding value, is showing how to use the technology and prompt it properly, and making those injections happen behind the scenes with the apps they're building for their clients, so that it's a more frictionless experience for the clients. And I think that then is giving their customers a competitive advantage with their same playing field of their target marketplace.
I like that what you said. Go ahead, Tim. I was just gonna say, like, you can't see the face on ChatGPT. Like, I'm really confident about this, or like, I don't know, like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. It's like you're not getting a lot of feedback on like percentage like correctness. Yeah,
they need Clippy. So they literally need Clippy.
This is this crawl, walk, run situation that we're in, because you can get it very, very, very correct. You can trim the model down, you can run tuning and training, and you can get it better at specific tasks.
Right.
So, like the foundational models, by foundational model, when I say that, I mean GPT 3.5, GPT 4, or Llama 2. I mean like the ones that we interact with. You tune them and you give them extra data. So like businesses are going to want that. They're going to say, hey, can I use this, but get, for this specific thing, and I want it a little more accurate. Like tractors, right? Like say you run a tractor resale business, right?
Right.
You'll want to go and train it on all the manuals and train it on all the questions you get in your customer support and your sales calls and that type of stuff. So like that work's gonna be there, and someone's gonna have to do that for every single industry and every small business. And I think that's the long tail opportunity. But the first step of it is asking the questions and then like having that experience where you get a wrong response and you're like, wait, how can I make that better? How do I do that?
Yeah, and there's been a lot of discussion on, at least on LinkedIn, that I've been seeing and trying to wrap my head around about the inaccuracy. That's a mouthful. About data being wrong, about its response being wrong. It just showed us, right? And so, it's still in its infancy, and trust but verify, that kind of stuff. You talk a little bit about maybe, what you might be doing to try to make sure like what it's spitting back is at least close to right, if not right. If you can.
I mean, a lot of it is on education, right? It's just making sure people understand how right things are and how wrong they are. I mean, I can't go and magically change the foundational models, and they're going to be changing all the time, right? Like GPT-5 is going to come out eventually, and it'll be really, really good and 100 times better, 1,000 times better, but it's going to do things wrong, and I can't predict what it's going to do wrong. We can educate our users, we can track it, we can manage it, we can help with that. Like for example, there was a version of GPT-3 and even GPT-4 when it first came out. It was just wrong at math. It just couldn't do math. Yep. Right. And then it was widely communicated to everyone and they learned. So like we are building in, we have built in an agnostic approach and being able to granularly choose what models to use, and even like where the data goes, which gives you a lot more control over that versus just putting it into a black box on a model that's constantly changing. So like I wish I could tell you like, we're going to be able to tell you when it's going to be right, when it's going to be wrong, but like we can't. And that's a reality that everybody's going to have to deal with unless we get really deep into tuning, and that there we can get.
I think you nailed exactly the point I was hoping you'd come back around to, which is this is all fun and exciting and new and sometimes wrong. And so, always I always talk about do your due diligence, right? And so, if I'm thinking as an MSP and I want to kind of dive deep into this, obviously we can reach out to you. I want to find like specific use cases that I can sell to my customer and bring money into my business, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to help people, we want to protect, we want to grow, we want to learn, but we need to make money along the way. So help us to start thinking about, if I'm an MSP, what might be, some avenues for us to make revenue money, to make money off this thing at some point.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways. I think so long term, it's going to be in preparing data and tuning models and managing infrastructure. Like, highly regulated customer wants access to a coding LLM. They can't, it needs to be in their cloud, like that type of thing. Like that's a lot of work. And some MSPs will end up specializing that and making really good money there. Shorter term, it's software, bringing the technology, right? Like you could sell our software, make a margin off it. You can make margin off of Copilot, things like that. If you're, CSP reseller, and in management, right? So building use cases, helping with prompts. I think every MSP is going to be in the prompt engineering business before they realize it, like later this year. Everyone is. And there's a lot there, and you could even charge extra for that. You could add it as a managed service. You could have a team who specializes in prompt engineering or AI implementation for business processes, right? These are all ways that you can upsell or justify larger contracts for things. And then it's going to be a tipping point, and you move people along and upsell, and that's how you go from they tried ChatGPT once to they're using AI powered applications in their business. We're enabling it. We're driving the change for them to they have their own model that we manage for them and help them tune and manage the infrastructure for.
And it goes back to that competitive advantage, right? So the minute you have that set up for them and they can go to their industry and say, we use AI to ensure, we're innovative, we're next edge. That's a competitive advantage. That's a marketing advantage for that client. And I like Tim Harrison's follow-up is, the chicken and the egg thing. You need customer success to talk about it, right? But again, Jimmy, I think to your point is you can go in there if you know the client well, which you do, and actually show them something that you've used on yourself. And that's another point that I wanted to get into is MSPs can use this first to help themselves gain efficiencies and build up, just like we do with everything. What we did with security, like you said, we use it on ourselves first. We figure it out, and then we package it and deliver it to our clients, right?
We were literally just talking about this an hour ago with Marnie and Spooner on Books and Bits, right? And about that whole teaching versus coaching, that whole learn one, see one, do one, right? And so, practice on yourself. We say that a lot, right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
There's a good example. Like I think there's a couple of questions in the comments asking for use cases, and I think with the chat. So interesting enough, like I worked in a SOC and we were trying to do a chat bot before a lot of the technology was available, and we were using Kendra or something like that. It was viciously expensive. But Jimmy, do you see kind of like the SOC would ask questions for the chatbot, be like, what are the IOCs, or like what ticket number is it, or what like specific cyber contextual questions? Do you think that would be like kind of an easy win for an MSP? Like, how do I reset my password, or like, go to CyberQP, right? Like, how do I do something like? Yeah.
Our answer to that is her name is Adele. She's a customer service agent. But everyone's going right to chat, and we'll have chat enabled too. But I think like augmenting existing lines of support. So letting it take phone calls, and like we already have that working where you call our customer service agent, and she walks you through how to, you mentioned CyberQB, walks you through, like that's one of the examples that we did in our initial testing, walks you through how to reset your password, go to app.quickpass.com, download it from the app store. Oh, I've never downloaded an app from an app store. How do I do it? Okay, you go to the blue icon, like it can do all that. But like customers aren't like, they're more likely to just call you than to go on like a chat bot. So like we're in a funky period where the best interaction with this type of technology is through chat, and most users aren't used to that as a UI yet. So I think that there's an intermediary period, or maybe it's forever, where we have to use existing UIs and existing human computer interactions, such as emailing an address and you have an AI that's able to respond, or augmenting existing employees with their responses, or calling a phone number and a AI answers.
Yeah. That's exactly what I want to touch on.
Like tolerance or something we used to call it. Like how fast do you piss them off? Or they're like, give me a human, right? Like,
No, I think you guys are hitting on something that I wanted to bring up, and you reminded me of it. Is that, I think we've seen a shift in the MSP landscape and in technology in general, right? Is that more repetitive, let's call them tier 1 help desk tasks, are becoming automated, are becoming less relevant. We're seeing a shift in the way MSPs are comprised, where they're needing more L2 and L3 techs. And that's another use for AI, not for just MSPs, but for clients as well, is augmenting and becoming force multipliers for their better employees, or their knowledge workers, right? So this is augmenting knowledge workers. So this is going to continue to help accelerate that shift where we need smart people to check AI, to know how to use it, but we can augment their output through AI. And that's a big use case for it, I think, both in the MSP and for the clients.
The less skilled the work and the more tedious the work, the less employees you need to do it with AI. And there's
Right.
going to be monumental changes over the next 5 years.
Yes.
It's going to, I'm not an economist, and I don't, I don't have a good opinion formed on how it's going to change the economy. But I am in the business world, and I know that organizations with thousands of people trying to do specific tasks like data entry or customer service, basic stuff, AI is going to be more efficient, not only more cost efficient than a human, but also more efficient, like more skilled than a human at it.
Yeah.
So it's gonna have massive changes, and you can think organizations can 10x their output with 1/10 of the amount of people in a lot of different areas.
Right.
No, I mean, that brings up a philosophical question, because we hear that too. AI is going to put me out of a job. Yeah. AI is going to make my level 1 technician be not relevant anymore, right? And so we hear that too. We hear that fear mongering or whatever. What do you think? Do you think that there's already platforms in place embedded into PSAs and RMMs and dealing with ticketing? As an MSP, I'm a little bit afraid of that. You're going to put my level 1 tech out of business and he's doing the lion's share of the work?
Yeah, so everyone's always going to need help with IT. The MSP business is going to be one of the last taken from the rise of the machines. Maybe it's not going to be, call it like level 1 stuff. Maybe the new level 1 would be level 2.
Right.
But the number of people that we need to solve technology problems is gonna that gap is always gonna widen for the number of people we have and the number of people we need. It's gonna be different skills that's gonna change.
Yep, that's exactly right. At least in my opinion. And I think, as you said, the level 1 becomes a level 2. I think what it does in a lot of ways is it frees up that monotony to allow people to be more creative and to be more innovative in the way they think. And so, if you're a level 1 person that's day is just completely crushed with answering,
password resets,
site offline. Oh no, it's back online. Okay, bad Comcast mode. Right? AI can do that for you now, and you can actually start working on, maybe learning how to pen test or learning how to do prompt engineering, which is more interesting work anyway. So, I think it's not something to be scared of, Tim, to answer your question. I think it's something that could be very positive, but it's just like anything else in this career. If you're not constantly learning, you're falling behind, and you got to continue to constantly learn. So there's my philosophical answer to that.
Of course. So lots of great comments coming in. I want to pull this one up from Eric over here real quick and dig into this, single model, model guided, natural, lots of big words that Tim Golden can't read. So paradigm, I'm literate user. So let's dig into this just a wee bit, right? So single model versus guided model, blah, blah, blah. Jimmy, is this resonating at all with you and have any sort of response to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we have existing systems with existing data, systems that as someone in the AI world get to call legacy systems, which is hilarious because it's the systems we're all using.
Wait a minute, AI is now legacy? Damn.
Yeah, anything pre AI is legacy. I'm just kidding. So you have a button and it spits out some data. So the use case isn't right now, at least, get rid of all buttons and put all functions data in the chat, and you just go Skynet, communicate to Tim, and it sky beams you a message, right? It's read my email, send an email, it's using existing tech, right? In an AI augmented way, which means taking functions, hitting APIs, taking actions, training AI to take the actions on existing systems. And it's going to be a long time that we do that. I mean, we still do that. Like every MSP has some Windows 98 server like that they're supporting somewhere. Like everybody pretends that they don't, but like, there's some manufacturing company that has some CAD software that only runs on it, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I always use that as the example when I'm talking to MSPs about understanding risk matrix. And I use that like Windows XP machine plugged directly into the internet with no firewall with millions of records.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Windows XP machine locked in a room with one person with the key, no internet connection, and no records.
Yeah.
Which one's more at risk? And that's where AI can help us start to understand risk, right? I hear a lot. I don't know, like 1 to 5 likelihood, 1 to 5 impact, right? I don't know. Tell me what it should be. Well, this is where, business processes, this is where things like, these chat models can help us understand understanding that risk, right? At least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think that's another piece to answer that earlier question about how do we bring this to market and how do we differentiate? And I think talking as an MSP, talking to your clients through that, there is some risk in using this stuff. And so we want to put guardrails on, right? I love the example that I heard somewhere of, Coke scientists are in the lab talking to ChatGPT, putting in the different formulas for Coke that they're, testing different things on. Then all of a sudden someone across the country says, hey, if I was to make Coke, how would I make it? And then ChatGPT spits out the formula to them. So you have to understand about, and I like what Jimmy, what you're doing is saying, hey, we can provide segmented and sequestered large language models so you can be sure that that's not happening, right? It's only training on your data. It's staying in your guardrails, for
Enclave,
example. Yeah, Enclave. Thank you. And so I think that's an important piece, again, when you're thinking about how to talk to your customers about that and show them that it is not just as easy as their kids show them to type it into ChatGPT, and there's things you have to think about. So
yeah, well, you're not asking questions on the internet, right, Jesse? I mean, you're asking questions about the data right there. Yeah, we didn't really talk about like what's actually going behind the scenes on ChatGPT. So, but yeah, we're talking very local in terms of data here.
And the same thing about the paradigm shift, and I think that's right, is that users to have to go from looking things up to actually now I have to learn how to conversate correctly. And there's like almost an art form to it. It's a completely different way of inputting data into a system. But I will say, when I started on the help desk, 20 years ago or whatever that was, I would always say that the only reason I have a job is because I'm better at Google. And we all knew how you learn how to manipulate your Google searches. It's the same iteration of that. It's the same thing. We talk about prompt engineering. That's the new tech. That's the new level 1 help desk, right? Hey, I'm having problems getting this model to put out the data that I want. Can you help me with that? Okay, now I have my level 1 prompt engineer doing that.
If I get one more Instagram reel showing up on, let me help you build your prompt engineering. Let me teach you how to ask GPT. I'm like, I've had enough already. But it is actually the world that we live in, right? Jesse, you make a really great point of, I had a good job doing the best work because I could Google better than anybody else. And back then I could Alta Vista and Disney Go better than anybody else. If we want to put some dating behind that.
Yeah. Well, that's a good t-shirt, like the prompt engineer. Yeah.
Some, college graduate who is new to an industry but is really, really good at using ChatGPT or Hats AI or whatever, they're gonna do well. They're gonna do extremely well.
Yep.
And they might do better than coworkers who have been there for 15 years. Like, it's gonna happen.
It's going to help raise the level of intelligence for someone that is good at engineering and getting data, being good at Googling, so to speak. If we want to make that comparison, they can raise their knowledge level quickly. 2 years, they're working at like a 10-year level, and we talk about that force multiplier again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you need MSPs, because without them, like, you have an entire sector of small businesses in the world who are overlooked because they can't afford data scientists, and we're on the wrong side of the second digital divide.
I mean, it's like the same thing. It's the same value prop. Okay, now you can bring in, six-figure prompt engineers, or you can hire an MSP for half that, right?
That's a great point. And so, you mentioned data science, data analytics, right? And Tim Schnur, we were talking about this a little bit before in the green room. As long as the math model is right, because it's been broken a couple of times, it's been really interesting to be able to, I think I said this a few minutes ago, like, help me build a model for, paying my salespeople. Well, apply that, methodology or thinking to a small business, right? Again, making sure you've cleansed the data, at least in the current tools, if you're not on Jimmy's Hats AI, like, cleanse the data or make it up or something so that you're not putting your company data out there in these public things, which is, kind of what I've done on a couple of different things, fictitious stuff and redacted stuff to learn. As I continued to refine and refine and refine what it was actually doing, and Jesse said this a second ago, it was teaching me how to ask the question better. And then by the time I got through the whole thing, and I was like, I actually probably didn't need this, because it forced me to think about something different as I'm going through the process, right?
Well, I love to consider kind of just the shift and how things are going to work out, because you realize that people that are excellent writers are all of a sudden really good at Chat GPT, because they have this command of vocabulary and can write succinctly and really precisely about something. And that when you read it, but it actually has an effect when you put something into an LLM. So you watch now, don't come out of college with that wasted English degree, right? All of a sudden, an English degree has a little bit more value to it when you parlay it into a prompt engineering job. So it's really interesting.
130 grand prompt engineer. There you go, Jimmy. Found my next job. So we're winding down. We got our last 10 to 9 minutes here, 9 to 10 minutes. We always try to leave the MSPs with the key takeaway. I'm going to go first, and then we'll kind of go round robin, give everybody here an opportunity to have one key takeaway. And my key takeaway is have an acceptable use policy in and around AI. I'm going to say that because that's what I do. But educating your end customer as an MSP and teaching them about the success they can have of being able to protect the data that they have. I'm not telling you to go out and block all the domains, but I am telling you to spark the conversation with your customer around how are you acceptably using this technology in that small business. And if you haven't even thought about it, tell you what, we have an acceptable use policy here that we can help you write. And not me personally, I'm talking about you, the MSP. We have an acceptable use policy here. Let's put this together for your small business and inform your staff of the do's and don'ts, right? And if you happen to need an AI policy template, you can grab one from me. Okay, done. Jesse, what is your one key takeaway, my friend?
I would say that don't ignore this. This is something that you want to get out in front of, and you can use as a differentiator for your MSP. So start talking with your clients about it. Start asking questions. Start being curious. Start taking the temp with them. Maybe develop a couple of questions just to ask in your SBR. What are you thinking about? And then also, I think for yourself, for founders or other leaders in these MSPs, as you're using Chat GPT or Hats or whatever AI model you're using, writing down ideas. Hey, you use something that was cool. Capture that, document that, keep an Evernote or some other thing running, and start to think about building business cases and having those ready at your command to talk about with your clients, like Jimmy mentioned. So that would be my takeaway.
What about you, Mr. Schnur?
Yeah, a lot of overlap with what Jesse just said. I think there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of mislabeling of what is happening, and AI is just a very broad term. keep playing around with it, right? Like keep experimenting with it, find a couple easy wins here and there, and you'll continue to kind of hopefully play around with it. So I think that's my big takeaway is like I've always hated the term AI, and I'm probably getting in trouble for it a lot now, but is it just is it this and that? You guys have all seen like when they pull the hood over the guy, right? Like that AI example, or is it more than that? And like what more is it? But like the only way to really figure it out is to play around with it, try a couple use cases, try those use cases that aren't non-essential, that are not like critical to the business. So that's my big takeaway.
Gotcha. And then, of course, let me do this, Jimmy. Other than go to hatz.ai and get on the list, what's your key takeaway?
My key takeaway is probably the importance of MSPs in this next transition. I think small businesses aren't ready. I think things are going to happen way faster than anyone is ready for. I think enterprises and new businesses, or the enterprise and upmarket has an advantage, and new businesses will have an advantage. But incumbent small businesses are going to need help, and the only group of people out there capable of helping them, and maybe they're not ready yet, but they will get ready fast because they always do, is the MSP community.
Good stuff. So if you happen to be a small business listening to this, reach out to the MSPs that have already started to partner with Hatz AI and build that strong relationship and build that differentiator into your business, at least from a we're looking at it perspective. In the last couple of seconds here, I literally just realized, Tim, we don't have anybody scheduled for next week.
It's a mystery guest.
Is it? It's like I was gonna pull it up and be like, oh yeah, and then I was like, how did we do that? Because we're like booked out till the end of March. So hey, anybody want to be a guest next week?
we run a real professional.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I don't see it.
I'm kind of shocked, but I don't have it.
This is a
trying
use
to pull
for
it
AI.
Maybe we should.
Looking at the calendar, notify me 2 weeks ahead of time. You don't have something for this. Here's some suggested people that haven't been on the show.
I don't know what that comment about practice what you preach.
Steve Taylor.
I don't know what
that is. Ring a bell?
No. Anyways, so we'll end early because I can't really share what's coming up next week because I don't even know. But I would say join us next week for our mystery guest. Actually, I know we can do. There's been a bunch of stuff bubbling up all over the internet for the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's just we get back to our roots and it's just Jesse and Tim BSing for a minute or two because. We've had a lot of like internal conversations and we're like, hey, we should bring that. And we can't until June. Oh, hey, we can't until February. Yeah. So tell you what, starting next week at 2:00, come join and maybe we will have a mystery guest.
Little fireside chat,
which is really where our roots started. So Jimmy, thank you so much for participating. We wish you all the best. Yeah, I'm on your sign-up list. And for those of you that are not, I bet you're just getting inundated with all those contact forms now. So thanks, everybody. Any last parting words before I kick us all out?
Later.
3.
Build your AI future.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, appreciate it.
Subscribe now.